Deep in the Russian countryside, between Moscow and St. Petersburg, lies a mystery that has confounded investigators for years. Lake Valdai stretches across the landscape, its waters reflecting centuries of history. But it's what sits along its eastern shore that tells a different story, one of power, secrecy, and a family hidden from the world. From satellite imagery, the compound appears fortress-like. Anti-aircraft missile systems dot the perimeter at regular intervals, creating an impenetrable defense shield. The infrastructure is staggering. Private train stations with dedicated platforms, residential blocks for security personnel, aircraft hangars, and sprawling mansions that dwarf most government buildings. This is no ordinary estate. This is one of Vladimir Putin's most guarded sanctuaries. But among the military hardware and imposing architecture, something unexpected catches the eye. A children's playground, brightly colored and modern, sits incongruously among the serious governmental structures. Nearby, a go-kart track winds through manicured gardens. These recreational facilities pose an intriguing question: who are they for? Putin's known daughters, Katerina and Maria, are both approaching 40. His divorce from Lyudmila Putina became public over a decade ago. Since then, Putin has maintained an image of solitary dedication to state affairs, never appearing publicly with a romantic partner. Official Kremlin records remain silent on any additional children. Yet the evidence before our eyes suggests otherwise. Someone young lives here, protected by one of the most sophisticated security operations in the world. The question is, and just who they are, is why their existence demands such extraordinary measures to remain concealed. Ilya Rozdestvensky sits in his office somewhere in exile, surrounded by documents that could cost him his life. As a reporter for the Dossier Center, he's made a career of investigating Russia's most powerful figures. But this investigation is different. This one is personal, dangerous, and potentially groundbreaking. I left Russia 3.5 years ago, Ilya explains, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. Just months before the invasion of Ukraine began. The Ministry of Justice had already designated me a foreign agent, one of the first. In their eyes, I became an enemy of the state simply for doing my job. The foreign agent law has become one of Putin's most effective weapons against dissent. Designed with deliberate vagueness, it allows the government to target anyone deemed under foreign influence. Once labeled, individuals face constant surveillance, financial restrictions, and social isolation. For journalists, it's essentially a death sentence to their careers and sometimes to their lives. Russia's press freedom ranking tells a grim story: 171st out of 180 countries worldwide. As of mid-2024, 35 journalists sat in Russian prisons. Many others have been murdered, their cases remaining unsolved or attributed to convenient accidents. The message is clear: investigate the Kremlin at your own peril. Yet, Ilya continues his work, understanding the risks intimately. When you live in constant danger, you adapt, he says. You become accustomed to looking over your shoulder, to encrypted communications, to never staying in one place too long. Despite the threats, he began investigating Putin's secret family 4 years ago, driven by a journalist's fundamental belief: truth matters regardless of the cost. This investigation would test that conviction in ways he never imagined. Her name is synonymous with grace, power, and Russian athletic excellence. Alina Kabeva dominated rhythmic gymnastics throughout the early 2000s, collecting world championships, European titles, and ultimately Olympic gold at the 2004 Athens Games. To millions of Russians, she represented national pride, a golden girl who brought glory to the motherland. But Kabeva's relationship with power extended far beyond the competition floor. She first appeared alongside Putin in 2001 at the Russian Cup, their interaction seemingly casual. More meetings followed, captured by cameras at state events and sporting ceremonies. Then came the explosive 2008 article in Moskovsky Correspondent newspaper. The journalists claimed Putin had secretly separated from his wife and was planning to marry the 24-year-old athlete. Putin was in Italy when the story broke, cornered by Western journalists demanding answers. His response was visceral and angry. He insisted the story was complete fabrication, then launched into a tirade against those sticking their snotty noses and erotic fantasies into other people's lives. The Kremlin's reaction was swift and unprecedented. The newspaper was shut down within 48 hours. That was probably the first and last time Putin ever commented on the story, Ilya notes. The message was clear. His private life was absolutely off limits. Following the newspaper's closure, Kabaeva's political career accelerated dramatically. She became a member of parliament for Putin's United Russia Party in 2007. By 2014, she chaired the board of directors at National Media Group, Russia's largest media conglomerate. Her proximity to power became undeniable, though the Kremlin maintained absolute silence about the nature of their relationship. In Russia, everyone knew, but no one dared speak publicly about what had become the nation's worst-kept secret. The trail went cold for years until 2015, when a Swiss newspaper published an extraordinary claim. According to their sources, Alina Kabaeva had given birth at an exclusive private clinic in Lugano, a picturesque city in Switzerland's Italian-speaking canton. The report was specific, detailed, and impossible to verify through official channels. Then, in 2022, another Swiss publication corroborated the story with additional details. For Ilya, these articles represented the first tangible lead. The clinic in question, St. Anna, enjoys an impeccable reputation as one of Switzerland's premier maternity hospitals. Wealthy and powerful clients from across the globe seek its services for privacy and world-class care. If Putin wanted to keep a birth secret, this will be the place. Ilya began investigating the medical staff. He discovered Dr. Natalia Thibaud, a Russian gynecologist who had immigrated to Switzerland over 3 decades earlier. Having a Russian-speaking physician during labor would provide comfort and confidentiality for someone like Kabaeva, who would need to communicate sensitive information without translation. The real breakthrough came from leaked flight records. Ilya spent months combing through aviation databases, tracking private and commercial flights between Russia and Switzerland. The pattern that emerged was revealing. Kabaeva and Dr. Thibaud traveled together multiple times in 2014. 2015, 2018, and 2019. The flights always followed the same route, Moscow to Lugano and back. The timeline suggested something extraordinary. If the Swiss reports were accurate, Kabaeva may have given birth to 2 children, roughly 4 years apart. But despite having names, approximate ages, and travel records, the children themselves remained invisible. They existed somewhere in the shadows of Putin's empire, protected by layers of security and deception that made them untraceable through conventional means. For 18 months, Ilya pursued dead ends. Russian birth registries contain no record of Kabaeva's children. Hospital databases yielded nothing. Even leaked documents from security services proved fruitless. The boys, if they existed, had been completely erased from official documentation. Then, in the summer of 2023, everything changed. By accident, I obtained financial documents from a company that works for Vladimir Putin, Ilya recounts. It was a massive cache, thousands of transactions, payroll records, expense reports. At first, it seemed routine. Payments to construction firms, security contractors, maintenance staff. But when I started analyzing the patterns, anomalies appeared. These weren't ordinary business expenses. Buried among the transactions were payments to highly specific personnel. Private yacht crews, helicopter pilots, specialty dog trainers, and private tutors for children. The amounts were staggering, often exceeding what entire schools spent on education. Someone was maintaining an elaborate private infrastructure, and the money trail led directly to properties associated with Putin. Ilya began contacting people listed in the financial documents. Most refused to speak, fearful of repercussions. But one individual, someone working directly on one of Putin's estates, eventually agreed to talk under strict conditions of anonymity. This insider confirmed details that had previously been speculation. the playground visible in satellite imagery? Built for Putin's grandchildren from his daughters Katerina and Maria. But then the source revealed something more significant. There are 2 other children living on the property. 2 boys. Their names are Ivan and Vladimir Putin Jr. Finally, after nearly 2 years of investigation, Ilya had confirmation. The secret sons existed. Their names were known. Now he needed to understand how they lived and why such extreme measures were taken to hide them from the world. The Lake Valdez compound stretches for over 3 kilometers along the eastern shore, a sprawling complex that functions as both presidential retreat and family sanctuary. Putin's armored train makes the 4-hour journey from Moscow regularly, arriving at a deserted platform where a helicopter waits to complete the final leg. From above, the estate's true scale becomes apparent. The lake itself covers 19 square kilometers, dominated by the ancient Iversky Monastery. But surrounding this historic site is a military installation disguised as a residential complex. Anti-aircraft missile systems create concentric rings of defense. Rows wind through residential blocks housing security personnel. Luxury mansions dot the shoreline, each equipped with state-of-the-art surveillance technology. According to Ilya's source, Putin now spends more time here than in the Kremlin, a claim independently verified by another contact with direct knowledge of presidential movements. This estate may well function as Russia's unofficial seat of government, where policy decisions are made far from public scrutiny. Access is severely restricted. A single road leads to a massive gate, beyond which lies a parking lot that satellite imagery shows is consistently 80% full. There are hundreds of people working there, Ilya explains. Security guards forming multiple protection layers. Personal assistants serving Putin and Kabeva. Chefs, cleaners, groundskeepers. Boat crews for the vessels. Private teachers. Maintenance workers. It's essentially a small town dedicated to serving one family. Anyone who needs close interaction with the family faces an unusual protocol. Mandatory quarantine for 2 to 3 weeks in dedicated housing. Putin implemented this during the COVID-19 pandemic and never rescinded it. His paranoia about personal safety is legendary, and these measures ensure complete control over who approaches his children. The boys, Ivan and Vladimir Jr., live in this gilded cage, their world carefully constructed and absolutely isolated. Ivan is 10 years old. Vladimir Jr. is 6. Their childhood bears no resemblance to normal Russian kids their age. They occupy a recently constructed residence, having moved from what staff call the presidential villa. The interior is luxurious beyond measure, imported furnishings, custom-designed spaces, technology that most Russians will never experience. But wealth cannot compensate for what these boys lack: normalcy. They wake each morning surrounded by staff nannies who attend their every need, bodyguards who shadow their movements, private tutors who provide education in isolation. They have virtually no contact with children their own age. Their social interactions are limited to carefully vetted adults, all of whom are employed by their father and dependent on his favor for their livelihoods. Job listings that Ilya discovered on specialty recruitment websites reveal the estate's requirements: English-speaking nannies with military-grade security clearances, educators capable of providing university-level instruction to elementary-age children, child psychologists experienced in unique family dynamics. The compensation is extraordinary, but so are the demands for absolute discretion. Entertainment is abundant but hollow. The boys can drive go-karts whenever they wish, racing around a private track with no competition except each other. They maintain a small zoo of pets, from exotic birds to purebred horses. Staff members are instructed to keep them constantly engaged, preventing boredom that might lead to questions about their isolated existence. Occasionally, Putin plays hockey with Ivan in the estate's private rink. His bodyguards serve as opponents, facing an impossible dilemma: compete genuinely and risk humiliating their employer's son, or throw the game and reinforce the fiction that Ivan and his father are unbeatable. They choose the latter every time. The compound includes a private golf course, a restaurant serving cuisine from around the world, a cinema with films before their official release, a bowling alley, and even a casino. Religious services occur at the private chapel, allegedly named for Saint Vladimir. When summer arrives, the family's isolation shifts location but never diminishes. They alternate between a designer villa near the Finnish border, where the architecture emphasizes glass and natural light, and a $100 million yacht that serves as a floating palace. The yacht, allegedly owned through a sanctioned offshore holding in the British Virgin Islands, represents Putin's approach to wealth. Technically not his, practically his entirely. The vessel contains amenities that rival five-star resorts, multiple master suites, a helipad, a swimming pool with adjustable depth, a fully equipped gym, and entertainment systems featuring the latest technology. Staff quarters house a crew of 30, including private chefs, security personnel, and maritime specialists. When the yacht departs Russian waters, it's accompanied by military vessels maintaining a protective perimeter. Meanwhile, millions of ordinary Russians struggle with poverty. Outside the gates of Putin's estates, pensioners live on monthly incomes of less than $200. Young families crowd into Soviet-era apartments with failing infrastructure. Rural communities lack basic medical services. The contrast couldn't be starker. Putin's official presidential salary is listed as just over $110,000 annually, yet his lifestyle suggests wealth measured in billions. This discrepancy reveals the fundamental corruption of Putin's regime. The properties he inhabits are registered to state-owned companies like Gazprom or loyal oligarchs who hold them as favors. His yacht's ownership structure involves multiple shell companies spanning several jurisdictions. His estates are maintained through budgets that officially fund governmental operations but actually pay for personal luxuries. Putin doesn't serve Russia. Russia serves Putin. The country's resources are his personal treasury, and he draws from it without accountability. His sons live in obscene comfort, while their father sends hundreds of thousands of Russian soldiers to die in foreign wars. The hypocrisy is breathtaking, the injustice profound. Why does Putin invest so much energy in hiding his sons? The answer reveals his fundamental approach to power: absolute control through absolute secrecy. As a former KGB agent, he learned early that information is vulnerability. If no one knows about his family, no one can threaten them. If his personal life remains opaque, opponents cannot use it against him. But there's a deeper calculation at work. Putin governs Russia through carefully managed perception. He presents himself as a dedicated statesman, married only to his country, sacrificing personal happiness for national service. This image resonates with Russians raised on narratives of self-sacrifice. Revealing his secret family would shatter this mythology, exposing him as just another powerful man prioritizing his own desires over public duty. The secrecy also protects his sons from scrutiny they cannot handle. Ivan and Vladimir Jr. are being raised in a bubble of privilege that would provoke outrage if publicly known. While Russian children are taught in crumbling schools, Putin's sons receive world-class education. While families struggle to afford basic health care, his boys have concierge medical services. The revelation would undermine whatever legitimacy Putin still claims. Ilya believes Putin is the wealthiest man on earth, not because he built a business empire, but because he controls an entire country. The Russian state isn't just at Putin's disposal. It exists for his benefit. Government ministries function as personal services. Military resources protect his properties. Public funds bankroll his family's lifestyle. His sons will likely inherit a fortune built from state resources, becoming wealthy beyond measure without ever creating value. But they won't inherit power, at least not soon. Putin is 72. Ivan is only 10. Russian law requires presidents to be at least 35, meaning Ivan would need to wait 25 years, far beyond Putin's likely tenure. Ilya Rostesvensky isn't pursuing this story for sensational headlines or tabloid glory. He's chosen not to publish photographs of the children or overly specific details about their daily routines. They're symbols, he explains. They represent how Putin actually operates: the corruption, the secrecy, the appropriation of public resources for private gain. He's following in dangerous footsteps. In 2021, Alexei Navalny released a viral investigation exposing Putin's secret Black Sea palace. The video accumulated over 134 million views, sparking the largest anti-Putin protests in years. Authorities violently crushed the demonstrations. Navalny, who had barely survived a poisoning attempt in 2020, was arrested upon returning to Russia. He died in a Siberian prison camp in 2024 under suspicious circumstances. The risks are impossible to ignore. Since 2011, at least 37 journalists have been murdered in Russia. Amnesty International has documented multiple poison gas attacks on Russian reporters living abroad. The message from the Kremlin is unambiguous: investigate us, and you will pay. Ilya understands what he's facing. There is danger for me and my family. I'll probably be followed. At some point, I might need to move again without disclosing my location. Just disappear quietly. He pauses, considering his next words carefully. But for now, it seems manageable. Why continue? Because truth matters. Because Russians deserve to know how their leader lives while they struggle. Because corruption thrives in darkness and withers under scrutiny. Because someone needs to document what Putin desperately wants hidden. The investigation continues, one carefully verified detail at a time, building an indisputable record of Putin's secret world. The truth can be imprisoned or poisoned. Eventually, it will emerge completely, and when it does, the contrast between Putin's public image and private reality will be undeniable. That moment, Ilya believes, is worth any personal risk.